A reactor feedback loop turned a routine salvage operation into a fireball. Station Ondine, a Concordat research outpost, disintegrated in seconds. There were no survivors.
The Concordat will demand a life. The senior officer is executed. That is me.
I countermanded the captain's orders. I claim full responsibility.
Andrew, you can't. That's not what happened. You weren't even on the command deck.
Number, I am captain. The fault lies with me, not my first officer.
The Concordat only wants one officer, captain. Let it be me. Your children deserve a father.
Security cutters docked, with the Kestrel within the hour. Andrew offered his wrists without hesitation, as if he had been expecting this. His face held no fear, only a quiet, resigned certainty. The faint trace of a smile. Under Concordat law, the senior officer is executed. The captain had a mate and a young daughter. Andrew had claimed that role. No one on the crew understood why. They could only watch in silence as he was led away into the dark. As the guards sealed Andrew into cell 4, Captain Kell stood alone in the corridor, his shoulders heavy with the weight of an unjust fate.
They will see me executed. My family will watch me die. I have failed them.
Kell keyed in his home code with trembling fingers. The hologram shimmered to life, bathing his cell in pale blue light.
Sierra, Lyra, I am alive, but I may not be for long. There has been an accident on Station Ondine.
Andrew watched through the narrow viewport. The soft blue glow lit his tired features, but his eyes remained calm.
Captain, don't fight this. Your daughter needs you.
Andrew, why would you do this?
Because someone once did it for me. We pass it on.
Kell had no answer. In the common hold, Mara and Tevin heard the exchange and stared at each other, bewildered. The detention block fell silent. Andrew closed his eyes. The stars outside were cold and indifferent, just like the law that waited. 3 cycles later, guards brought Andrew and Captain Kell into the Grand Concordat Tribunal. The chamber rose around them like a cathedral of cold justice.
Andrew of Terra, you are charged with negligence, leading to mass destruction. Under Concordat law, the senior officer is executed. Do you confirm you were in command?
I do. I countermanded the captain's orders. The fault is mine alone.
He lies. I was captain. The command was mine. He is trying to protect me.
A most unusual dispute. Both claim guilt. One must be deceiving.
Perhaps neither deceives. Perhaps the human believes his own fiction.
We will determine the truth. This tribunal orders a deep truth scan. Your minds will bear all.
Andrew's face remained still, but Kell's 4 eyes widened. The scan would reveal everything, even a selfless lie.
I consent. Scan me now. There is nothing to hide.
The judges exchanged glances. A man wanting the scan was not a liar. For the first time, the tribunal's certainty wavered. Guards led Andrew into the scan chamber, a silent alcove ringed with blue-lit nodes. He stood beneath the arch as if he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. The nodes pulsed. Light swept across his body, mapping every neural pathway. The scan was painless, but it demanded absolute surrender. A holographic readout materialized above the arch. Alien script resolved into 2 stark words: truth confirmed.
Impossible. The machine is faulty, or he is so deeply self-deceived that his own mind believes the lie.
The scan has never failed a living mind. He is not lying to us. He is lying to himself, perhaps, but not to this court.
I told you. The fault is mine. Can we end this now?
No, Andrew, this does not end. A man cannot simply erase the law by wanting to die. We must understand why.
He is a human. Their psychology is primitive. This is clearly a malfunction of their irrational impulses.
Or a window into a kind of strength we have never recognized. What if he genuinely holds himself responsible, not by law, but by something else.
The tribunal fell into an uneasy silence. The scan had proven Andrew's truthfulness, but it had not explained the impossible shape of it. Captain Kell did not wait to be summoned. He stepped into the scan arch, his 4 eyes fixed on the judges with a desperate clarity.
Andrew had no authority to countermand me. None. I was the captain on that bridge.
The arch pulsed again. The holographic readout resolved with brutal simplicity, truth confirmed.
Impossible. Both insist on guilt. Both prove honest. The law cannot abide this contradiction.
The law was not made for this. It asks us to choose, but we cannot when both speak truth.
Then we execute both, the senior officer and the self-proclaimed commander. That satisfies the letter of the law.
That satisfies nothing but your appetite for order. 2 dead when 1 could suffice. That is not justice, Corvath.
Thane raised a hand. The movement was slow, waited. Her voice, when it came, was tired and absolute.
We recess. Something deeper is at work here. I will not have this tribunal become a butcher's block. We will investigate the human's motive fully.
The tribunal adjourned, leaving 2 contradictory truths hanging in the air like a verdict no one could yet read. The 3 judges gathered in the great law archive. Endless holographic tomes surrounded them, mute and unhelpful.
12,000 years, and no precedent. No species volunteers for punishment. It is unheard of.
Then his mind must be broken. A human delusion of guilt. We need a deep psychological probe.
The order for a deep psychological probe was drafted and approved within the hour.
If it is not illness, then coercion. A threat to his own bloodline could force a rational being to such lengths.
No evidence of coercion. He volunteers freely, like a fool.
Then the probe will dissect him. Every memory, every hidden drive. We will see what makes a human choose death for a stranger.
Proceed. A full neural archaeology. We may be facing something unprecedented.
The authorization flashed through the network. Andrew, in his cell, had no warning. The ancient legal system had never required a man to explain why he would die for a stranger's child. Guards brought Andrew to a quiet chamber and placed thin filaments against his temples. The deep probe would map every hidden shape inside his mind. The machine hummed, and Andrew's consciousness flooded with the images he had carried for decades.
I remember the fire, the heat, and the hands that pulled me out.
A memory surfaced, a burning apartment block on Earth, a younger Andrew pulled from smoke by a stranger. The rescuer turned to ash, but the debt survived.
We pass it on.
The probe ended. The report was drafted in cold medical script. No psychosis, no coercion. Only a man who believed he owed a life.
He believes he owes a life because one was given for him. This is not mental illness. It is a moral code.
A moral code that defies self-preservation. Irrational.
But genuine. And we are left with a prisoner who committed no crime, only an act we cannot name.
The probe had eliminated every false explanation. What remained was a choice so selfless that the law had no name for it, and no precedent to guide what came next. The judges read the probe result. Corvath's scales bristled. Silra's wings fluttered. Thane was still as stone.
Madness. This human is broken inside. The law demands we execute the captain.
In the detention block, word of the deadlock spread. Whispers ignited like a fire.
They can't even agree on what they're looking at. It's not a crime. It's a gift.
Maybe this will force them to see reason. He's not lying. He's just good.
You call it madness because you lack the word. But this is not madness. It is something we cannot name.
The law is clear, yet so is this human's act. I am not certain the law can see it.
He is dying for me, for my family, and I am powerless.
Thane withdrew from the argument. Her mind churned with a question the Concordat had never faced. The tribunal stood divided. Outside, the stars waited. The law had never been asked such a thing. Judge Thane retreated to her private chambers. The silence was a relief, but the questions were sharper than any advocate's voice.
12,000 years of law, and we are stopped by a single human who does not want to live. What am I failing to see?
She closed her eyes and let the facts settle, not as a judge, but as a soul confronting the impossible.
He is not ill. He is not coerced. He simply chose another's life over his own. That is not a crime. It is a debt he carries. We have no law for this. Our justice punishes wrongdoing, but this man has done something we cannot even name. If we execute him, we claim his act is worthless. If we execute the captain, we deny the meaning of his choice. This law is not just. It is blind.
The realization landed like a verdict. Her own silence became the first draft of a new path.
The law must grow, or it becomes cruelty.
She walked back to the tribunal chamber, not with an answer, but with a question that could reshape their entire code. The tribunal had never been asked to name an act of grace. Thane intended to change that. The tribunal reconvened. Judge Thane rose, her luminous eyes carrying a new, unshared certainty.
The law as written is insufficient. 2 truths, no deception, yet our code demands a single guilty life. The flaw is ours.
The law is eternal. We cannot discard it because a human's irrational act confuses us.
We are asked to do justice, not to preserve law unchanged. The law must live, or it dies.
We recess to consider a broader deliberation. This court will not be a mechanism of blind sacrifice.
The trial was suspended indefinitely. No verdict, no execution. A silence heavier than any sentence fell over the Concordat. In his cell, Andrew sat still, the faint smile never leaving his face. He had already made his peace.
They are struggling with something they cannot name. Maybe that's enough. Maybe they'll find the word.
Captain Kell wept. His 4 eyes streamed silent gratitude and guilt, a debt he could never repay. Far beyond the sealed doors, rumors began to travel the interstellar circuits. The Concordat was facing something it could not answer. The tribunal reconvened with a charged silence. The air itself seemed to press against the walls.
We must create a legal category for voluntary sacrifice. The Concordat cannot punish what it does not understand.
You would tear down centuries of precedent for one human's irrational choice. This is madness.
It is not madness. It is evolution. The law must recognize the act, even if it has no name.
A holographic proposal shimmered into existence, a new clause for mitigated responsibility and acknowledged sacrifice.
This will open the floodgates. Every criminal will claim self-sacrifice to escape justice.
No, because this act is singular. It leaves no self behind. It is the opposite of evasion.
In his cell, Andrew listened through the intercom. His hands, still cuffed, rested quietly on his knees.
They're trying. They might actually change it. Maybe that's enough.
For the first time in 12,000 years, the Concordat was debating the shape of grace. The debate sharpened. Korvath's objections grew. Silra's counters more acute.
If we soften the law, every criminal will plead self-sacrifice. This weakness will undo us.
You mistake strength for rigidity. The law must bend or break. Injustice is the true weakness.
A hologram crystallized the proposal. Mitigated collective responsibility with a clause for voluntary sacrifice.
This provision allows consideration of sacrifice as a mitigating factor. It does not excuse, but acknowledges.
Acknowledging a self-destructive impulse as virtue is a betrayal of every principle we hold.
If our principles cannot hold mercy, then they are not principles but iron cages. Let them break.
Guards led Captain Kell into the chamber. He stood in the light, his 4 eyes wet.
You would rewrite 12,000 years of law because one human chose to die for me. Why?
The draft hung in the air, a fragile bridge between iron past and an unknown future. After the deliberation, guards granted Captain Kell a brief visit. A force field hummed between them, but the silence was more fragile than any barrier.
Andrew, I still do not understand. Why would you do this for a stranger?
Because someone once ran into a fire for me. A man I never knew. He died so I could stand here.
That is a private debt, not a command from the state. You owe nothing to me.
Debts like that don't belong to one person. They belong to anyone who still has a life to give. Your daughters need you more than the universe needs me.
I have never heard a being speak like this. Your species carries grace like a wound.
Maybe, but it's not a wound. It's a hand-me-down. We pass it on.
Then I will pass it on too. I swear it. Whatever the tribunal decides, my family will know your name.
That's all any of us can ask.
The force field hummed between them, but the wall between two souls had collapsed. The captain left, carrying a new, unbearable gratitude. The three judges gathered again in the deliberation chamber. The draft floated between them, its words no longer tentative but sharp with consequence.
We must enshrine recognition of voluntary sacrifice, not as a loophole, but as a principle. The Concordat must name what this human has done.
You would create a precedent that invites chaos. Every species will now claim their criminals are martyrs.
Only if we are too blind to distinguish sacrifice from self-interest. The probe gave us clarity. Let us use it.
The hologram shimmered as the final wording coalesced, mitigated collective responsibility with a provision for acts of grace. Unofficially, the jurists called it the Andrew Provision.
I will record my dissent. This is reckless compassion, and history will judge it as weakness.
History is written by the living jurist. I would rather be judged for mercy than for blind execution.
Silra nodded once, her wings folding in quiet agreement. The weight of 12 millennia hung in the air.
Then we are ready. The tribunal will reconvene for a final vote. Whatever follows, this day will be remembered.
They left the chamber in silence, the draft law hanging like a new star, fragile, bright, and untested. News of the suspended trial leaked across relay networks. On 100 worlds, public screens glowed with Andrew's haggard face. Commentators mocked the human. One called his act a primitive death wish. Others paused. A Silvari poet wrote, "He gave what cannot be taken," a statement from the Terran Confederacy. Sacrifice is our highest strength, not a flaw. We honor the one who gives everything for another.
The wave has reached us. Every channel carries the human's face. Our ruling will not stay inside this chamber.
Public emotion is not law. I will not be swayed by sentiment.
But the law must see the souls it serves. This is not mere sentiment. It is a mirror.
The three judges stood at the great window, watching the traffic of ships swarm around the Concordat hub. Thousands of worlds listening.
Tomorrow, we vote. May we be worthy of the name we are about to give.
Across the galaxy, sentient beings who had never heard of sacrifice paused to wonder. For the first time, a human's choice had forced the universe to look inward, and something inside the Concordat began to bend. The tribunal took their seats for the final time. Andrew and Captain Kell stood beneath the cold light, the draft law hovering between them like a question.
Tradition is the spine of civilization. If we break now, we invite every species to rewrite justice to suit their weakness.
Tradition without compassion is brittle bone. The universe changes, and we must change with it or shatter.
If we cannot honor an act that gives all and asks nothing, we are not a court of justice. We are a machine of cold equations.
Andrew closed his eyes. Whatever happened now, they had tried. That was already more than he had hoped.
I will not violate the oath of my ancestors.
Then you stand for the dead. I stand for those who still breathe.
This tribunal will now vote. May our decision serve the living and honor the willing.
She raised her hand in the ancient gesture of summons. The chamber grew so quiet that the hum of starlight seemed to press against the walls. The future of 12 millennia held its breath. And in the silence, a single question hung. Would the law learn to name grace? The holographic voting display materialized above the bench. Two green, one read, the chamber exhaled.
The law is amended. Mitigated collective responsibility is now Concordat law.
The tribunal announced a formal censure for both Andrew and Captain Kell. The old code of execution was overturned. Andrew's eyes brimmed with tears. The faint smile he had worn for weeks finally widened, trembling but real. Captain Kell sank to his knees, 4 eyes streaming. Gratitude and guilt shook his tall frame.
The sentence of execution is lifted. You will both face the censure of this court.
The guards remained motionless, but the stiffness in their stances had softened into something like reverence. Corvath sat rigid on the bench, his dissent forever recorded, but the living law had already moved beyond him. The law had changed. Andrew's life was no longer forfeit, and the galaxy was already beginning to hear. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Concordat had given a name to what Andrew did: sacrifice. A guard stepped forward. The same guard who had cuffed Andrew weeks ago now reached for the binders.
Thank you.
The cuffs clicked open. Andrew rubbed his wrists, the marks still raw, but the weight of months had lifted. Captain Kell strode forward, his tall frame trembling. Without words, he pulled Andrew into a fierce, desperate embrace.
I have no words, only this.
A guard who once looked at Andrew with suspicion now raised a hand to his brow in a slow, deliberate salute. Andrew returned the gesture with a quiet nod. Then he and the captain walked together toward the great doors.
Go now. Your debt is paid.
The doors of the Grand Concordat Tribunal swung open, and for the first time in weeks, Andrew felt the light of a free sky. Behind him, the guard's salute remained frozen in the air, a quiet monument to an act the galaxy was still learning to understand. A transport carried them to the civilian hangar, where the crew of the Kestrel had been waiting, their faces pale but hopeful.
Andrew, we saw the verdict. I thought I'd never get to say thank you.
The whole station is talking about you, not as a criminal, as someone who taught them something.
Sierra and little Lyra stepped out from behind a cargo crate. The captain's mate moved like someone afraid the ground would vanish.
We have no words for what you did, only a promise. Our children will know your name.
That's more than I ever hoped for.
Lyra tugged at Andrew's sleeve, her bright eyes curious. She did not speak, but her tiny hand squeezed his fingers.
This is the first day my family is whole because of you. I will spend the rest of my life making sure the galaxy remembers why.
Andrew looked around at the mismatched crew, the alien family, the hangar lights that suddenly seemed warm. The weight of the cell and the cuffs and the cold tribunal faded, replaced by something lighter, an ordinary, extraordinary grace. Across the galaxy, news feeds crackled with the Concordat verdict. On 1,000 worlds, the face of a tired human appeared on public screens. A Silvari anchor paused mid-report. Her large black eyes blinked slowly as she read the new legal text. Then she set down her tablet. The humans taught us a word today. We have no direct translation. They call it sacrifice. On a bustling trade station, a crowd of dozens of species watched in silence. Some shook their heads, but many simply listened. The Concordat issued a formal statement, broadcast on every diplomatic channel. Justice has grown. We have learned a new word, sacrifice, in the hangar. Andrew watched the same broadcast on a small screen. Sierra stood beside him, her hand on his arm.
They're starting to understand. That's more than I ever hoped.
The broadcast looped, showing the new law's text and Andrew's face. Across the galaxy, species that had never conceived of self-sacrifice began to ask what it meant. And somewhere in the void, the word sacrifice took root, a human seed in alien soil. Months later, on a quiet colony world, twin suns sank over the Kell family garden. A small crowd had gathered, their faces softer than the old days. Captain Kell stepped forward, cradling a newborn wrapped in deep blue cloth. The baby's tiny chest rose, and fell in the quiet.
His name is Andrew. It means the one who chose to fall so others could stand.
Sierra's dark eyes glistened. Lyra stood beside her, old enough now to understand the weight of a name. Andrew stood at the edge of the gathering. His hair had more gray, but the faint smile was the same. The baby stirred, a tiny blue fist escaping the cloth, reaching toward the sky.
You'll never have to earn this name. It was given, just like mine was.
The name hung in the warm air, a human name, now an alien promise. And as the last light faded, the circle of mismatched souls drew close, bound by a debt that had become a gift. The galaxy would learn the words slowly, but here, in a quiet garden, it already had a face. Slowly across the galaxy, the word spread, not through conquest, but through transmission. A single idea carried on carrier waves. A map of the known systems appeared on countless screens. The word sacrifice, glowing in 100 alien scripts. On a world called Serenis, a classroom of young beings sat in a quiet circle, their species different but their curiosity identical. One child, a small insectile, raised a limb and asked, "What is sacrifice?" The human teacher, a woman with silver-streaked hair, smiled softly. She leaned forward. She said, "It is when you care more about someone else than your own life." The children absorbed the words like soil drinking rain. One by one, their eyes changed. Far away, in the quiet garden, the baby Andrew slept, unaware that his name was already a star, and the galaxy slowly began to understand not just the act, but the strength that chose to fall so others could stand. The transmission faded, but the lesson remained, and somewhere in the void, a human debt had become a galaxy's gift.